Putin is saying all these things have happened in the past. They weren't worth the paper that they were written on. We can't trust the West. From our perspective, in the West, we always talk about, oh, we can't trust Putin. As long as both sides are convinced they can't trust the other side, fellas, that means the only outcome left is fighting it out on the battlefield. We are in words pursuing peace, but in actions, we're laying the foundation for the physical defeat of Ukraine. And Putin said, we have along the entire line of contact, 2,000 kilometers, you go all the way from the Kursk area or the Sumy area now, where that most of that fighting's going on, all the way around down to the southern part in the Zaporizhia area. And you see that Russia has the advantage all across the contact. They have the strategic advantage, meaning they set the terms of the debate. Even in this couple of areas where the Ukraine side has local counterattacks going on, that still hasn't changed the strategic dynamic that Russia is in the position of power. I've shown you also a lot of media reports that say Russia has two large groupings of formations which could launch new offensives literally any week now in the north, in the Sumy area, and in the south, in the Zaporizhia area. Maybe somewhere else too. Who really knows? But there are groupings out there, and the Ukraine side, this is not my opinion or the Russians, the Ukraine side says that they feel that there's going to be new offensive start very soon and could go for 6 to 9 months, assuming that the Ukraine side can survive that. So you have them admitting openly that the West is well aware that Russia is preparing to increase its pressure on this 2,000 kilometer front. And we keep talking about, hey, let's don't agree to anything unless we actually like it. Not realizing, not just doing the standard logic that, okay, I don't like the conditions as they exist right now, and I want conditions X, Y, and Z, a just and lasting peace from Kiev's benefit that I would like to have happen. Now, even if you don't like the outcome, you can still see the ground. You can still see the map. You can still see how it's moving to the west. You can still see these apparently large groupings of Russian forces. You can see the annual threat assessment that the United States came out with last week and admitted that Russia has the strategic advantage and they can continue fighting and win a war of attrition. We've said that openly. Everything that you can see says it makes no sense to do anything other than have a negotiated settlement on the best terms we can get today, because every day we delay means more loss of territory, more loss of personnel, all that kind of stuff. And yet that is exactly what we're doing. And you see Putin in that comment there. And that goes also with something he said, I think it was last Monday, what they call National Guard Day, National Guard Troops Day in Russia, where he directly tied all of their historical stuff from World War II and the Great Patriotic War to what these guys are doing right now, which feeds into this domestic nationalistic fervor within Russia, where the support for the Russian people of this war is at its height. I don't think it's been any higher than it is right now. And you can see a lot of anecdotal evidence of that. So they're saying, hey, we're just going to keep going with this until we have the same outcome today that our forefathers had in World War II, which is the complete victory. And listen, if you read a lot of the Russian telegram channels, whether this is Putin's idea or not remains to be seen. But at least among many of the advocates on the Russian side, they're saying it needs to be Berlin 1945, Kiev 2025. Those need to be identical in how that's going on. They don't want to just go to the Dnieper River. They don't want to just go to the gates of Kiev. They want to take Kiev. Now, Putin is still willing to go negotiated settlement if he gets what he says is his minimum requirements. And of course, that's not just the territory, but it's also the denazification, i.e. new elections, and the demilitarization, a shell of what they have right now. Those have to be agreed to by the Western side. And those are really high asks, which so far I don't see that they're actually going to do them. But that's where we are right now. We'll either agree to these onerous and ugly deals now, or all evidence shows that Russia will simply keep going. Whether they have a big new push or they just keep on with this methodical push, I can't say. But I can say with a lot of confidence that whether it's that one or the other, the net result is going to be the same. It'll just change when it's going to happen. My personal view is that the Ukraine military is so weak that if there is a concerted Russian push, especially in 2 weak points, wherever they may identify the weakest points, and they put a lot of pressure on those, I think that the chances are very high that there'll be a buckling and the Russians can roll into the country. So I think that that's probably the biggest danger. we'll see if the most likely course is to just keep on going with what they've been doing until they eventually, in 6 to 9 months, just literally just wipe out the Ukrainian army, and then they just by default end up in Kiev. We'll see how that happens, but it is ignoring reality to the highest degree against our own interest to continue going this way. Now, one last thing I want to talk about here. There's a reason why Russia is so immovable, not just because of those diplomatic things here, but one of the things that Russia has been saying and accusing the West of for a long time is that, this is not even just a proxy war. This is not just you giving ammunition to our opponent, but you physically being engaged in it. Of course, we've denied it all the way through. No, it's not true. We're just giving them ammunition and weapons, and the Ukraine guys are figuring this out. That is, at least until a couple of days ago, I think it was on Friday, when the New York Times published a detailed assessment called The Secret History of the War in Ukraine. This is the untold story of America's hidden role in the Ukrainian military operations against Russian invading armies. This is a very, very long and detailed article. Recommend everybody who wants the truth to go and take a look at it. But I'm going to highlight 3 things that I saw that I think are really, really meaningful and where we're trying to go right now. This starts off, says the New York Times investigation reveals that America has woven into the war far more intimately and broadly than previously understood. At critical moments, the partnership was the backbone of the Ukrainian military operations that, by U.S. counts, have killed or wounded more than 700,000 Russian soldiers. A vast American intelligence collection effort both guided big-picture battle strategy and funneled precise targeting information down to Ukrainian soldiers in the field. One European intelligence chief recalled being taken aback to learn how deeply enmeshed his NATO counterparts had become in NATO operations. They are part of the kill chain now, he says. Let me just ask you, to stop for a second here and imagine that. Let's go back and say during the U.S. war in Afghanistan, that we were fighting the Taliban and we had all these war troops going on, whatever, and then all of a sudden we find out that the Russians had been given the Taliban missiles, drones. All of a sudden now they have artillery pieces, all kinds of ammunition and explosives for more powerful IEDs, and American troops were getting killed because of this. Are we going to say, our fight's with the Taliban. I don't like it what the Russians are doing, but what do you do, right? We would be going crazy. You may recall, I don't know if you do or not, but I paid a lot of attention to this stuff. There was shortly, maybe a year or so before the war came to an end, there was some reports that Russians had been paying bounties to the Taliban people to kill American soldiers. And that got everybody's hair on fire. And I remember thinking, first, that's kind of weird because we're fighting the Taliban. They try to kill us every day anyway. They don't need a bounty for that, but whatever. That was what they were claiming, and everybody was all upset about it. How dare the Russians pay bounty to these guys? But now then, what if they actually gave them all this ammunition stuff? Or let's make it a little more painful. What happens if, and we don't have time to go into it in this episode, but Trump also over the weekend said that if Iran doesn't do what he said and come to the agreement he wants within his purported time frame, which is about a month and a half from now, there will be bombings in Iran. We will attack Iran. Now, what happens if Trump decides to make good on that? And by the way, that's a violation of the U.S. Law of 1973 War Powers Act and the U.S. Constitution. Trump does not have the authorization or the legal power to just take the U.S. into war with another country, just attack them without a congressional authorization, without an outright declaration of war, or unless we were first attacked by the other side. None of those things are in case now, so we can't do that. More on that later. But let's say that happens. Maybe he even gets an authorization from Congress and they decide to go ahead and do that. Now then what happens if instead of just going after Iran by itself, now then they've got MiG-35 jets or S-400, maybe even S-500 air defense systems, a bunch of drones from the Russian side that are even in addition to what the Iranian side can make by itself, or air defense capacity or anti-aircraft missiles, etc. And all of a sudden Russia's just openly saying, yeah, here's all this stuff. You want to come into Iran? You're going to be running into this. Are we going to be okay with that? Are we going to be fine with that? Are we going to, again, just kind of shrug our shoulders and go, it's just how war works now? I doubt very seriously that that would be a passive situation, that we would be okay with that. And yet we're doing all these things with the Russian side.